So if we start looking at specific parts, starting with the mouth, some of this common knowledge, the mouth is the first portion of the alimentary canal. It receives food, that's the first place you put it. Mastication is the term used for mechanical digestion of the mouth. I am assuming that that is a vocab word that I will put on the test. Oral cavity then is the opening, it's the mouth, it's the cavity of the mouth. And then the narrow space between the teeth and cheeks is called the vestibule. So like for a man that chews snus, they put that snus or snuff in the vestibule, is that little pocket area or narrow space between the teeth, cheeks, and lips. Cheeks are the lateral walls, lips are highly mobile. Lips are sensitive and help in judging temperature of food and texture of food. This slide, fairly confident you're okay with that without me talking too much. Tongue is a very thick muscular organ. If anyone has their own cattle and they get meat from their own cattle, a lot of times they'll send the tongue with it. Some people eat cow tongue. It is a very muscular organ, so supposedly that should be, I have never eaten tongue. However, and I've never eaten heart. But both of those, because they are so muscular, are supposed to be very good for you, and etc. So tongue, thick muscular organ, it's covered with mucus, it has your taste buds. The little flap, and I'll show a diagram, the little flap at the bottom in between your lip and teeth is the lingual frenulum. I'll show a diagram of that. The papillae are on your tongue. They allow friction for food to move. It helps to break down food a little bit, gives a little extra friction. And then lingual tonsils are just lymphatic tissues at the root of the tongue. They are not your tonsils that you would have taken out. So your palatine tonsils, if you've had your tonsils removed, these are the tonsils that you've had taken out. Your uvula, you should know, your uvula is the little dangly down part that, you know, if you stick your finger down your throat and makes you want to throw up. Your uvula is the little part that dangles down. Vestibule, here's this space. Here's that lingual, is that lingual frenulum. It's a little flat part. Everything else should be okay. Hard palate, soft palate. If you feel the top, the roof of your mouth, the front is harder, the back is softer. You have a hard palate and a soft palate. Which I just said. This I've pretty much, the soft palate and that uvula, their job is to actually close off your nasal cavity during swallowing. If you've ever seen someone, you know, if you start laughing or something and they have milk come out their nose or their drink comes out their nose, if you've ever seen that happen, food can get up into the nasal cavity if it's not closed off. So sometimes if you do something, and laughing sometimes causes that to happen because it is an instantaneous movement of food or drink that will kind of be sent up your nose. The palatine tonsils, like I said, are towards the back. They're very important in protecting against infection. They're lymphatic tissue, and that's why they get red and they get swollen, like strep throat, things like that. They're going to basically hoard a lot of that infection. And sometimes people who have strep throat over and over again, they'll actually have those tonsils removed. Pharyngeal tonsils are your adenoids. If you've had your adenoids removed, they're actually further back than your palatine tonsils, and they sit a little bit above the soft palate. So when you say tonsils, you're probably referring to the palatine tonsils. Another diagram. This one probably not as important as the other one. Here, pharyngeal, so this would be your adenoids that you would be having if you had your adenoids out. Palatine tonsils, those are the ones, like I said, that you typically call tonsils. Teeth, you have two sets of teeth that develop throughout your lifetime. You have 20 primary teeth, or what we call baby teeth. So your 20 baby primary teeth are shed, they're lost, in order to be replaced by 32 secondary or permanent teeth. And that, my kids have messed up teeth. So when it comes to 32 secondary teeth, most people have that. My son has 30. For some reason, he's missing a couple. Sometimes someone might have an extra, or they'll have like a bud or something like that. But typically you have 20 baby teeth, 32 permanent teeth. So teeth, their job is mastication, mechanical digestion. They break food into smaller pieces. And then different teeth are used for different things. So like your molars at the back are going to grind, where your front, more towards your front, your incisors are going to be more for tearing. So here, if I look at them, incisors are your teeth that are at the front. Canines, just like you have canine teeth, this would be the same as the canine teeth in a dog, other than their canine teeth are long and ours are not. Premolars are also called bicuspids, and then your molars are at the back. And your wisdom teeth, if you have them, are also considered molars. Here's just a table that kind of goes through all of them. The one thing I like is that it shows the function of these. So incisor, the front, is more for biting. If I look at my canines, you know, if you have a tough piece of steak or beef jerky, when you're tearing, a lot of times you'll put that food at the side of your mouth. And then when you get to your back teeth, they are more for grinding and chewing. When you look specifically at the tooth, so if anyone's interested in orthodontics or dentistry, this is kind of what you'll get more into. There's a crown and a root. The enamel on the outside, we'll look at a diagram that shows this too. The dent in the pulp, cementum that holds it in there. There are nerves and blood vessels that are going to be in the bottom part. So your teeth are nourished through the bottom. And then there is a periodontal ligament that is, there's a ligament that attaches to your tooth that holds that tooth in place so that it does not fall out or get loose. So if I look at these layers, the root is a general term for basically anything below the gum. The crown is the whole tooth part that shows above it. So the enamel is the outside part. There's lots of commercials on enamel. Enamel can't be replaced. Acids are not good for enamel. That's the outside hard part of your tooth. Then there's a layer of dentin that's inside. And then the pulp area on the inside is where your nerves and your roots and blood supply are at. So here, if anyone's chipped a tooth, if you chip the outside enamel part, that's not going to hurt. If you chip and you actually break it down far enough that you're into that pulp area, then it's going to hurt because the nerves and blood supply are exposed. Inside that, here is that ligament that basically holds it in there. And then right inside of that ligament is the cementum, which I think that term should make sense because it basically helps to cement the tooth into the inside or to the bone that is next to it. And then the root canal is part of that pulp area that's down further. So people, if you hear the term someone has a root canal, a lot of times they have issues with their nerves or blood supply inside of a tooth, and that can be extremely painful. And we'll finish up quick with salivary glands because there's not a lot to do with that. Salivary glands secrete saliva. The job of saliva is to moisten food so it's easier to swallow. Kind of makes a bolus, starts to pack that food together. That liquid that's in the saliva helps the food taste better because it moves that taste around. And then it also has amylase. It has an enzyme in it that's going to start to break down, chemically break down carbohydrates. So these glands, these salivary glands, contain serous cells. Serous is watery. So it produces a very watery fluid through that amylase, which is an enzyme. And then it also has mucus cells, and mucus is going to be a thicker liquid, and that's going to help lubricate the food so that it moves very easily and help kind of bind it into a bolus, which is basically a clump of chewed up food. So your salivary glands get parasympathetic stimulation. That can be triggered by the sight of food, the smell of food, your stomach being hungry. So typically, commercials, 10 o'clock at night, you see a commercial for Domino's Pizza, your salivary glands are going to kick in because they're stimulated by that sight of food. Or you might not be hungry, but then you walk into a donut shop and that smell is going to start the increase of saliva, and that's also going to stimulate the feeling of hunger. Parotid glands, a little bit higher up in front of the ear. They're the largest of the salivary glands. They secrete serous fluid. A lot of your amylase comes from your parotid glands. Submandibular, under the mandible, so they're on the floor of the mouth. They secrete a thicker, more viscous, so a thicker fluid. A little bit of serous, a little bit of mucus. And then sublingual, inferior, below the tongue, they're the smallest and they secrete the most mucus. So parotid, serous, amylase, sublingual, mucus, thick, submandibular in the middle, both ways. And here is the diagram that shows where they are. So parotid, and think it like when you taste something sour also, and you can almost feel that saliva come out, it's coming from these parotid glands. Sublingual sits right under the tongue, and submandibular is a little bit lower. And that is where we'll totally stop for today.